we probably could have just gotten on and just said Missouri bad, Georgia very good.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that crossed my mind earlier today when we were talking about recording. Welcome to My Got a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I preview Georgia's matchup with Missouri, and we answer questions from you, our listeners. As always, remember to check out store.mygotapodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at My Got a Podcast. Finally, if you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, 5 stars obviously, and review the show. If you leave us a review, you just might hear it on an upcoming episode. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. So, this week, we have the Nooner.
Another Nooner.
Against everyone's favorite SEC East rival.
Man, I hate these guys.
Yeah. So, Missouri loves company, as my friend Will Harvey likes to say.
Missouri loves company. Yeah. Mizzou, just another mascot named Tiger.
Right. Yes. Over under SEC mascots, they're Tigers.
Seriously.
That's what I tell my kids. I tell them that they're like, if you don't know what a school's mascot is, just guess Tigers, because odds are like pretty decent odds that's right.
Yeah, it's like the church youth group. Like the answer is always Jesus.
That's good. Yeah, man. I'll go back to our conversation over the summer when we were talking about like conference expansion and everything, and my take was that we should contract, not expand, and Missouri is near the top of my list on teams to get rid of. They're not in the Southeast, right? I mean, that's the Midwest. Whatever. I know that doesn't really matter these days. I guess it's all about TV and money, and I just don't feel like they. I don't feel like they fit. Now, granted, I've never been there. I guess I would like. I mean, at some point, I'd like to go and see Georgia play at every stadium in the SEC. Swamp may never happen, which is fine, like we talked about last week. But I'll make it up there eventually when we're there. But we're at home this week. But I don't know. I just don't feel like they never made sense to me for the SEC. But whatever. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, no, it just doesn't. As much as this would be a nice to have, I just don't ever see it happening, especially since they have had their coaching carousel. They've been changing coaches every so often, and it just doesn't feel like that they are ever going to get there again. And really, if you look at the rivalry, which I guess this is probably a good segue into our Winsipedia. Are you going to go through that too, like the all-time record?
Yeah, you can go ahead and hit that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's what 9-1, right?
We're 9-1, and we have a 7-win streak against them, with the one loss coming in 2013.
It's 2013, which is funny. Like I always feel like we've lost to them twice because they won the East. Back-to-back years in 13 and 14, but we actually like shut them out in 14. It was other losses that led to Missouri winning the East. Other losses of ours that year, they didn't beat us. So in my mind, it feels like we did, but that was one of those games when 14. That was when Chubb and Michelle were freshmen, and I believe that was like when Gurley got suspended, and I think Nick Chubb ran all over Missouri. Was that game, I think, in 14. But anyways, yeah, 13 was a nightmare game. But hasn't happened again since. So
yeah, 13 was terrible. I don't know what the deal was there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't too long after that we got Kirby.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Better times. And then we all remember the wonderful 2015 9-6 win over Missouri, which was the barn burner, thrilling Grayson Lambert. Uh, although, who was trivia that I don't know the answer to? Who who would have been the kicker? Who kicked our 3 field goals in uh, in 2014? Would have been,
2015.
yeah, sorry, 2015.
The 96 game? That was
The
2015.
9-6, yeah. Like, was it Rodrigo? He wasn't kicking that, was he?
No, he wasn't there,
Uh,
was he?
no, he wasn't. I don't know. I actually asked something that I didn't know. I wasn't sure. So I don't know. We'll have to.
Trying to put glasses on it.
I literally don't remember. So that's okay. Yeah. So we're 9-1 all time against these guys. Missouri is coming in at 4-4 on the season overall. 1-3 in the SEC. With that one win being over Vanderbilt. We already said it's a nooner, 12 o'clock kickoff on ESPN. The official hashtag is hashtag MIZ for Missouri, hashtag MIZ versus UGA. And the weather, there will be clear skies, but as I know you and I have discussed, it's going to be pretty cold. So for the day, it's a high of 57 and a low of 37. I don't know what it'll be like at kickoff. But sounds like a bit of a cold front coming in.
Yeah. I imagine it'll be what? Maybe in the 40s is kind of my guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So
we'll see.
Yeah, and I will not be there. I had wanted to go. Lily has a soccer tournament this weekend, so there's really like no way. And she's got like one game early in the morning, and then she's got like a 1:30. So I'm actually not even going to be watching like at kickoff. I'll be listening from the soccer fields. And we're in Hickory, North Carolina. So yeah, I'm not going to be able to totally watch real time. I'll probably be listening to Scott Howard for this one.
Oh yeah, Carter's supposed to have a soccer game this weekend too, but with how cold it's going to be, and with this game, and considering how he's done the last few days, he's my son struggles with asthma, so okay. I don't know. We're gonna see. He didn't go to practice today. Actually, I didn't tell you that, but he didn't go to practice because he had an asthma situation. So,
got it.
The cold is not good for the Powells in general. So, we'll see. But I imagine it's going to be pretty chilly. So,
yeah,
definitely a bummer.
Yeah, I was hoping for the night game. When we had the 6-day window and like kind of everything was on the table, right? We had noon, 3:30, and 7 o'clock all on the table. If it was at 7, I was thinking like maybe I could work something out and get down there. Because ultimately, like what I hate to miss is Mark Richt is going to be honored at this game. So at halftime, Mark Richt will be out on the field, going to do some sort of honoring. And you know how we trot folks out to the 50-yard line and honor them. So we'll be doing that for Richt. Obviously he lives in Athens, but this is his first time back at a game, as far as I know, certainly being recognized at a game. Since the mutual decision, as McGarity called it, for him to leave. So that's going to be awesome. Love Mark Richt. Thought it was really cool when we heard that this was going to happen. So hate to miss that, but I don't know. Wish I could be there for that.
Are they going to have other?
Yeah.
Are they going to have like players from his tenure there?
I don't know.
Or is he just going to be standing out there by himself? You know how normally, like, they're talking about Vince Dooley and those guys. Like, normally there's other guys from the 1980 team that are out there.
Yeah, I think though that would I think it kind of depends on who they're honoring, right? So like once they honored that one, like this year at least, they honored the whole 80 team, so they were out there,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think this was just Rick. So
Mm.
if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably just going to be like Rick and his wife, maybe some people from his family or something, other
Right.
family members maybe um, out there, but who knows? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they bring a player back to present him with something or something. I don't know exactly what's going on. I was looking today. I haven't seen any updates. Like the only information I could really find was from back like when they announced this was going to happen, like a couple months
Well,
ago. You know.
we know for certain that there's going to be at least one former player on the field talking to
True. And our guy DJ
him.
Shockley. I imagine.
our
I assume
man,
that's who we're talking about.
our man DJ.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
A lot of speculation on the uniform for this game. I hear.
Right, right. I mean, if it was a night game, although that was a listener question, should we table that,
We can
or should
table
we
it.
go straight into or we
We'll
can just go
table
straight
it.
into the uniform back? Okay, we can table it till later. Let's hit the.
We'll save it. We'll save it for the inside sources portion of the podcast.
True. Good call. Um, let's see. Let's hit the news and notes. I don't have a whole lot. I actually did not listen to the press conference today, but I did go through and kind of read the recap that they put on Georgia Dogs. And the main thing that jumped out to me was that
Mm-hmm.
apparently Kirby Smart uh, does not appreciate PFF. Did you see that?
Oh yeah, he was saying how the NFL guys think the PFF grades are a joke, basically.
Yeah. He says, when we talk to
Wow.
NFL scouts, they laugh at PFF or whatever the source may be. And then he said, a lot of times PFF is a guy that works at another job during the day, and that's just his secondary job to chart whether or not Darion Kendrick or Jacoby Dean or whoever do their job. Their evaluation is probably not as supportive as ours. So, I mean, I gotta say,
Right.
Kirby, like, what's wrong with having, like a main job and then talking about football on the side? I see nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, seriously.
uh,
Come on,
so
Curbs.
yeah, so I don't know. I thought that was pretty funny. So it was very much like, God, Kirby, tell us how you really feel about PFF. So I thought that was funny.
I
And
mean, to a certain extent, I hear what he's saying, but also at the same time, like it's kind of like recruiting stars, right? Like you got to have something to go off of.
right, right, yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It felt very much like the thing he decided to go off on today. You know, so
Right.
yeah, I don't, I wouldn't put too much into that. So the other thing was he got asked about Jackpot and like his season and his consistency. Um, and I won't read like everything that he said, but towards the end, he said, the other day was tough. The other day being the Florida game. But he said that wind was violent. So obviously, Kirby listens to the podcast, right, with the swirling wind stuff. So he said the wind was violent. It was affecting both teams. Probably more on me for putting him out there in that situation. I trust him, and I think he's a really good kicker. I'm not concerned. So Kirby's not concerned. But it is interesting that he mentioned like more on me for putting him out there in that situation because that's the kind of thing of what I was talking about last week when we were talking about that, and kind of Jeff Dancer's point that he tends to make about when you're playing in Jacksonville, like don't attempt the long field goal because of that. That's what tends to happen. So I don't know. That was interesting. Those were the only things that really stood out. There wasn't much on the injury front, because we talked about all the guys that actually did come back. And I failed to mention in the Florida review that Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint also came back. He played in the Florida game as well. Had forgotten to mention that. But in general, it sounds like Don Blaylock still working his way back, and at this point, it's the hamstring is what they're worried about. So we'll see. I didn't see any mention of him being hopeful about Blaylock, for whatever that's worth. So
Right.
all right, let's jump into this. and this is where we will analyze what it will take for Georgia to beat Missouri.
Well, I
uh,
mean, whatever shall we do, Jim?
uh, yeah. So they're struggling. Uh, under their man Eli Drinkwitz. If we
I
look
don't know.
at, I think like I don't really have a whole lot to analyze. Like I hate to like be dismissive, but I mean like this is one of those ones where really all I could say is like the whole 18 to 22-year-olds thing. Like as long as they show up, I mean, do you need to be concerned with the noon kickoff, that kind of stuff? I mean, there may be a bit of a slow start because of that, but ultimately by the time the game's over, I don't expect it to have mattered anymore. Um,
Right.
with our offense, I think the thing that everyone is going to be looking for this week is, does JT Daniels get into the game? And like that's going to be kind of the intrigue. Um, we did see. I know actually you were texting today saying like doesn't seem like anyone in this press conference is asking like what's the deal with JT Daniels, which
Yeah,
they're probably
nobody's.
like afraid to ask it almost at this point. Well, no, I don't think they're actually afraid, but they probably know they're not going to get anything, right?
That's got to be the story for me. Like, if you're looking at the UGA offense, like, what is going on? What is the deal? Because, there's just been so many like weird things that have gone on. Like, Dominic Blaylock, like there was just like this. He was wasn't it? He was ahead of Arian or ahead of Kyrus. I can't remember who it was. And then like suddenly he was just like not there. Like he didn't play at all.
Yeah,
And then Arian Smith like has this like bruise that just kept him out of basically the whole season.
right.
um, and then you've got um, I mean, Kenny McIntosh obviously got hurt, but like he's coming back, which hopefully he dusted the cobwebs off in the Florida game. But yeah, I mean the big question mark here is what the heck is going on with JT Daniels, because allegedly he was ready to go if he was needed, right?
Yeah, that's what Kirby has said. Yeah,
So, but yet we were destroying and dismantling Florida. So why didn't he play in the fourth quarter if we are really going to need him, allegedly, as many pundits have said? And,
hmm
frankly, I don't disagree when you're looking at the yards per play with some of the top teams in the country. Like, there's definitely some undefeateds that are still on the board that, we may need an offensive machine that doesn't sputter in the first quarter, um, to, to put us in a position to win. So it would behoove us to get that, seemingly that talent out on the field as quickly as possible if he is truly healthy. And I think that's where I'm going with it. Is I question how healthy he really is. I don't know how it feels like we're getting a lot of smoke blown up our rear end, and I don't know, man. It just doesn't add up, because if you were healthy and he was healthy, like that's perfect opportunity to put him in, and he didn't.
absolutely. Yeah, especially. I mean, so I could see two things. So one thing, like in the at least post game Florida, Kirby did say like continuity was the reason this Stetson started, and like while JT is healthy, he didn't have as many reps, all that kind of stuff. So I don't. Again, who knows? Um,
Well,
but
did
like
he?
when
Because I thought that was the whole thing. Like he had all the
yeah,
first team reps.
right, yeah. That's what I don't. Things don't seem to add up.
No, not at all.
And then with the offense, like we said, got a slow start. Well, fast start until the missed field goal, like whatever on that first drive, and then like nothing for a while. And yeah, I mean, we were kind of like, where's JT? And then even go beyond that, to your point, right? And like when we talked about in the Florida review, that the fourth quarter was kind of like practice. I mean, perfect time to get JT in and knock the rust off, right? When the
Hmm.
game's out of hand. So yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really add up. But what I mean, what about the run game? Like, can we expect another big game out of Zamir or somebody? What are these guys doing against the run?
I mean, uh, from our offensive side, like I do think that this matches up to be a very perfect scenario where we have a heavy lean on on Zamir White and James Cook as well. You know, just like we saw
Yeah.
in the Florida game, we predicted that it was going to be James Cook and Zamir White getting the lion's share of rushes with Kendall Milton being out. And I think, frankly, I don't know that I necessarily saw a whole lot from Kenny to warrant him getting any more handoffs.
Mm.
So, I mean, this is the worst, I believe, the worst team rushing defensive wide. Yeah, so Missouri is giving up 283 yards per game. 284, call it 284 yards per game,
Mm.
which is good for last in the SEC from a rushing defense standpoint. So if you have a competent offensive line that can move the pocket or move the line of scrimmage, and you have a stable of 5-star running backs that are waiting in the wings, you figure that this is probably going to be a good day to let the let the big dog eat, man.
Yeah.
I mentioned in the review from the Florida game that I really thought that we had shown that Zeus should probably have been running the ball way more. And frankly, when you look at what they do well on the defensive side, which I guess if you can call it that, um, is their passing defense is probably one of the better passing defenses that we've seen. But so Arkansas, South Carolina, they have slightly better passing defenses from a yards per game standpoint. Missouri sitting in number 4 in the conference on passing defense, so slightly ahead of. They're actually statistically better than Florida, and Florida was able to pick off Stetson twice in this game. So especially when they were pinning their ears back and like, hey, make Stetson beat us. I imagine that's going to be the similar game plan that Missouri is going to come at us if assuming Stetson runs out as the starter. And at this point, I think we have to basically say that Stetson is the starter until Kirby proves otherwise.
Yeah.
So, uh, from a matchup standpoint, they're going to try to stack the box and try to stop us, but I just don't see that happening, and we're just going to run it down their throats. And this is going to be a fitting for the guest of honor, Mark Richt,
Mm.
is going to give them a dose of old man football. Kirby's going to give them a dose of old man football.
Which is it is funny because like remember when Mark Richt came to Georgia from Florida State, it was like ooh like passing. It's like oh man offense and oh he runs the hurry up offense and all this kind of stuff. But on this game like it's funny looking at Missouri right because you mentioned they have like the fourth best passing defense as far as yards a game allowed, uh, which goes to show how poor their rushing defense is because total defense yards a game, they're last. And they're last, obviously, in rushing as well to get there. So they're significantly in last place for rushing yards allowed. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. I mean, you know me. I mean, I love to run the ball, so I'm all for that.
Run the dang ball, Jim.
That's right. All right, let's talk our their offense, our defense. So the one thing I want to just get straight to it, right? The one thing that you would look that kind of jumps out at you, but I think you've got a counterpoint on this, and that's that Tyler Beatty he's currently the SEC's leading rusher uh, in total yards rushing with 989 yards on the season. So he's almost at 1,000 yards already. So should we be concerned about Tyler Beatty?
Um, I don't believe that the Bulldogs have much to be worried about with him because what you have to do is look at the breakdown. You look at it, and you and I were looking at this together when we were pre-gaming about what we are going to discuss here. But that's what immediately jumped out was what? Wait, what? They have almost 1,000-yard rusher. Like what? How is that possible? And you look at the
Right.
breakdown, and I said something doesn't add up. So you look at the breakdown of it, and almost all of his yards, so 250, 200, 240, 600, and almost over half of his yards have come against three teams. Central Michigan, he rushed for 203 yards. North Texas, he rushed for 209 yards. Vanderbilt, he rushed for 254 yards. So let's look at some comparative teams in the SEC, and these are teams that, as we know, are not very well compared to Georgia.
Right.
He ran for 68 yards against A&M, 41 yards against Tennessee, and 61 yards against Kentucky. Yeah,
Mm. Yeah,
fairly,
yeah, that's the one that I was
pedestrian
curious.
numbers.
Kentucky was the one I was curious to hear. So okay.
Yeah. So, one has to ask themselves, this may be a game where his per game average gets substantially hindered.
Right, right. And like, every time we've played against so far this season, one of these guys that is the best at whatever it may be, right? Whether it's the receiver from Arkansas or Chris Rodriguez. When we played Kentucky, Chris Rodriguez was the leading rusher in the SEC at that point, I think. And he is no longer. Oh, he's still up there, but what do you do against us? Like nothing. Um, yeah, I mean,
Not
it's
nada.
been yeah. So, I mean, I don't have any reason to believe that would change here. I mean, to me, again, the only thing Missouri can look at for themselves to be hopeful is to say, hey, it's a 12 o'clock kickoff, and it's going to be, they're going to be the slow start, which I don't know. Like, I don't know, like, so for the other noon kickoff games, like crowd wise, right? Like they were big opponents.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one, I mean, what's the spread? 38 points. So not the same.
38 points. The
Yeah.
largest, I believe that's the largest SEC line that Georgia has ever had, I think, something like
Mm.
that. I think, did Seth Emerson put something out like that earlier this week? Um, yeah, it's a huge line. It's a huge line. It's leading a lot of people to say, like, how are we going to cover?
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a lot of points. That's a lot of points.
It's a lot of
Um,
points.
but like I do, I I am curious. I'm curious, and I know, like again, like I said, like I can't go, but I am curious for those there, right? Like what's it going to be like? It's a noon kickoff against a lesser opponent, as opposed to other ones where perceivably not, right? Like our other noon kickoff games were like close to top 10 matchups. Game day was there, kind of deal, right? And this certainly won't be that. So I don't know that the crowd will be will live up to the elite acronym that we've thrown up there. So I guess I would kind of throw that challenge down to those who are going. Do what you can to bring that energy there, and have a good crowd energy, and and for our old coach too, for Coach Rick. So
I have a feeling. I have a feeling that the fans are going to show up for Rick.
yeah,
There's a contingent that's out there that is going to be very supportive of that situation for sure.
yeah, agreed. Um, what else? Do we have anything else on these guys?
What else? Well, let's see. We probably could have just gotten on and just said Missouri bad, Georgia very good.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that crossed my mind earlier today when we were talking about recording. Oh goodness.
We could have just skipped straight to the Coach Trill's over and unders. Missouri very bad, Georgia
Oh,
very very good. Um,
oh man.
lot a lot of points to a little points. Moving on
Right,
to Coach Trill.
right, right.
The
Um,
fastest ever podcast.
right. It's like Wait, why did this Mike Out of podcast show up in my podcast app and it's not an hour and 45 minutes? What just happened?
I don't know. John's going to be very disappointed.
The last thing I'll say on our defense, I did get a text from a buddy of mine, Brad, over the weekend, and he told me he said that I could quote him with this on the podcast, but he said to tell Carter earmuffs. So earmuffs, Carter. He said seriously,
Uh-oh.
our defense gives me a full chub. That was his.
Nice. Yeah, dude. This defense is truly, truly something that is just, I don't know, man. I think that everybody's kind of at the point now where it's like, just, screw it. Take it down. Just take us down.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
literally it's going to go down no matter what happens. This defense is, whatever happens with the offense, whatever happens with, the playoff and all that stuff, the SEC championship, who we end up playing, not playing, whatever. But like, I have truly enjoyed watching this defense work. I mean, they mentioned it, and I think we talked about it on the last episode, but it's just like, how hard is Missouri going to work to score 7 points on us?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, dude, they are fun to watch, and to pick out like an individual guy and watch him on a play sometimes can be just incredible. It's just like the ground that these guys cover. I mean, I don't know. I'm just sitting here mainly thinking of like Channing Tindall is who's coming to my mind. Like the closing speed that guy has, and just to watch his lateral movement side to side, I don't know, it's always fun. And there's so many of them that are like that. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's just one of those things where like you just gotta like to realize what we're watching and to enjoy it, every second.
Yeah, I mean, people get so excited watching offense and passing, and want to see these guys throw for 400 yards and score 5 touchdowns passing, and just putting up all these stats on the offensive side. But there's definitely something artful about watching a defense play offensive teams that are definitely in that mindset of, we've got to score points, we're going to score points.
Yeah.
And just seeing them completely shut them all down. Like there's definitely something artful about that. Like,
Yeah.
It's truly enjoyable for a different reason, a whole other different reason. It's like, man, you got to tune in and watch this, because you may not see these guys score
Right.
again.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. It's like must see TV to see the Georgia defense.
Yeah, seriously. Like it's like Florida scored 7, South Carolina put up some late points. But Auburn put up some late points. Like everybody, I mean, we seriously are very, very close to have had 4 or 5 shutouts, like eliminating junk time. Like that's just absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is. I don't have anything really on the special teams other than cold game. Oh, go ahead.
I do have an answer for you on the previous comments about the 9-6 game. It was Marshall Morgan.
Oh, okay. Nice. That's good.
Blast from the past.
That was a good nugget. Okay. So 3 Marshall Morgan field goals lifted us to the dramatic 9-6 win. That was a cool game, as I recall. But
yeah. Well, hopefully we're not going to need the kicker too much on this one. And also, like, what is going? That's probably as equally as maybe not equally, but it's also like a big conundrum for me. Is like, what the heck is going on with Jackpot?
I will. You know what? Actually, I did listen to the Bulldog Brunch this week, and Kevin Butler like started to say something, but then he basically like he stopped. And he stopped in a bit of a joking way, kind of like, I'm going to bite my tongue and not say something. So I don't know what he was thinking. But my guess is Kevin Butler knows what's the problem. He tends to do that kind of stuff. Man, I still wish we had him as the kicking coach on the team. I mean, Rodrigo's best years were the ones when Butler was a grad assistant when he was in school. So I
Yeah,
wish
for
we could.
sure.
I wish we could figure out a way to have him back on staff. But yeah, no, I'm with you. One thing that I started thinking through was like, I mean, could it be crowd noise at all? Because if you think about it, last year you weren't kicking in a pressure environment of fans, 80,000 fans screaming. Last year, his first year, right? So I don't know. That's the only thing I could, or it's probably something. I don't know if whatever Kevin was thinking. I don't know. Who knows? It could be a focus thing. It could be the way he's a swing plane or whatever, that kind of stuff. Who knows? So, but yeah, I mean, I always want to. I don't know. Like, will they manufacture some kick situations for him? Like I feel like they've done before.
I'm not sure, man.
Try to get a kick before the half, that kind of stuff.
I don't know. I would love to know what if Kevin Butler was about to say that. It would be very interesting to see because I'm at a loss, man. Because seems like they're there.
Yeah,
Some of these are like automatic chip shots in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could make them.
I certainly couldn't. You might be able to because you played soccer. I did not. Well, I did play intramurals once at Georgia, but not well.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, let's hit the listener questions. We can move into that. First up, we've got Fletcher Proctor. If Arik Gilbert was 100% back the week of the SEC championship game, would we want him back after not playing all season? I know he's a physical specimen. But would we just tell him to sit this year out and be ready for 2022, or would we put in a special package for him? I mean, my blunt thing, like, I don't know, like, if he would be eligible at this point. I'm not sure about. Like, I know he's away from the team, dealing with his personal issues. Like, is he also away from school? Like, I don't. That's what I just don't know. Like, they haven't really talked about it. So, if he comes back, I just don't know. There's a lot of question marks there. But assuming everything is cleared and he could play, I mean, two things. One, if he's ready and he can contribute and he can help, then the coaches would do that, right? But I don't know that they would do that, considering what we've seen thus far this year with guys coming back, because clearly practice reps matter a lot to the staff. So he'd have to be back, I would say, for weeks to be able to play that week, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if nothing else, the conditioning.
Exactly.
I mean, you saw that with who was it? It was it wasn't Burton. It was Rosemy. It was Rosemy Jack Saint. He was having cramping issues, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that I don't expect to see Arik ever playing for the University of Georgia. That's my bold prediction.
I don't think we'll see him. I don't think we'll see him this year. I will only go that far. That's as far as I will go. We'll see. And also, reminder:
Arik Gilbert.
Okay, so we can move on. Let's see. John Michael D. Over under on grown man football references with Coach Mark Richt back in the building against Mizzou at 1.5. So you actually already said it earlier on this podcast. So does that count as one?
I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, I'll take the over. I'll take the over as well. Okay. Let's see. Andy Coleman. I'm wondering if people are paying much attention to the thought that our offense really only produced 13 points plus the late 7 after Florida basically gave up. I was trying to I was thinking about this a little bit before. I'm not sure, like, what points are we taking off? So, all right, so we had 34. What are we discounting to say that we only really scored 13. So he's taken off the late Zeus. So that's 7 he's taken off. Is it the well, there's the pick six.
Pick six.
Okay. But then what else? Like the James Cook touchdown maybe? Because like the other things like were offensive points. I mean, it's not the offense's fault that they got the ball at the 11.
Right. I mean, it's a tough. I think what he's saying is that without those scores there, I mean, I would say that the I don't know, man. Like the Zeus run. I mean, that was a big time. That was an explosive play. So
Yeah.
I don't know that you can necessarily take that away. I mean, did they really quit? Because they certainly were trying to score 7 points at the end.
Right.
So
Right.
um, I don't know, man. Yeah, I get it. Basically, the overall concern there is the offense really didn't do a whole lot from a quote unquote like production standpoint, which should be
Yeah.
fairly obvious because Zeus only had like shade over 100 yards on, I can't remember, it was less than 20 attempts or something like that, I felt like. And then, Stetson only threw the ball 19 times. So, like,
Yeah.
I think what I would point to, Andy, is the net yards per play. The offense is definitely getting better from a yards per play standpoint. We already kind of touched on that. At least I think we did, unless that was just me thinking from us talking about it before. Um, but like the offensive yards per play for the University of Georgia is actually pretty decent. We're number 3 in the conference on yards per play. We're on the offensive side, so we're actually sitting at about 6.75 yards per play.
Mhm.
Florida was previously, I think they were previously number 1 or something like that because they had over 500 yards per game. Obviously, that number got impacted by the Georgia game, as everybody's games against Georgia does. Um, yeah, Alabama's 6.76, Florida's 6.77. Those are two. You'd probably point at those two teams and say, "Man, those are offensive teams. Like, why can't we be like them?" Well, the University of Georgia is sitting at 6.75. So I get it. We're not like lighting it up from a total yards standpoint, but from a yards per play standpoint, we're doing really well. And that number is probably going to go up on the offensive side um, after this game and after we get through some of these other games that we have left on the schedule. Um, so I'm not overly concerned about
Mhm.
it, but like I did allude to it a little bit about what happens when we get to the playoff when we're playing a team like Cincinnati or Ohio State that have substantially, not substantially better. I mean, Ohio State is better from a net yards per play standpoint, but Cincinnati is definitely kind of that best of the rest kind of thing from a yards per play standpoint. Obviously, we're going to get tested by Alabama, assuming they make it to the SEC championship as well. I don't know what their math looks like from clinching, but we're assuming that we're going to be playing Alabama, which is fine by me because this is probably the best opportunity that we're going to have over the last several years to try to beat them. But that's a
Yeah.
conversation for another day. But
Yeah.
the net yards per play for us, Andy, as you're 2.5, 2.7. That's where an elite team needs to be, and we're above 3, I think 3.5 or something like that.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair. Let's see. Dog talk. JT in the second half. What do you think? Think we see him? If we don't see him this week, then I'm back to what you were saying. Like what's going on?
Um, yeah, I don't know if you had to put it on me. If I had to commit right now, I don't think we're going to see JT. I don't.
You don't.
No.
Okay.
the the evidence is there. The evidence is there that we are not going to. I mean, Stetson. If Stetson was dealing like he was dealing last year, and like he was, we thought he was going to be able to do. I
Mhm.
mean, he struggled. I mean, frankly, I thought he struggled. I mean, yeah, he completed. his passes. He had, a couple hundred yards. I don't know, man. Those interceptions were just so bad. But
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
he
we
did
didn't have
struggle.
to.
Yeah.
We didn't have to, and I don't think that we're going to have to against this team. And I think the only way that we're ever going to see JT until Kirby just comes out and says JT's the starter is going to be a game where we are struggling with Stetson as quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I did the only thing I would question is like again like that kind of we're up big, knock some rust off kind of thing. That would make sense to me, but again, we didn't see that last week, and that was already there, so
No,
maybe not. You know.
yeah,
So,
no, that body of work is there.
and we had a question about that, and I don't. I'm. You're gonna have to explain to me. I can't follow you and your F3 friends like your names. um, so his handle is JK Livin78, and his name in here says F3QT West Cobb, the Grove.
Yeah,
So,
QT, yeah.
okay. So he said, "Is there more to the JT story? Why not play him in the fourth quarter against Florida?" So I think we actually kind of already hit on that. Like, it seems like maybe there is more to it, like because it doesn't add up, right? If he's been practicing and he has I don't know, is supposedly healthy, and we were up that much. Definitely seemed like a time to get the backup in. I guess I don't know. Maybe we didn't run that many plays in the fourth quarter or something. I don't know, but again, if we don't see him this week, then I'm really gonna say yeah, something there's probably is more to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've kind of gone on record that there's something is going on there. Like, I don't know if it's that he's more hurt than people are making it out to be, or that they don't want to put him in. And the flip side of this is like, okay, if you're protecting him, then putting him in junk time is not smart because you're risking him re-aggravating that injury. Which it's funny that we're talking about JT and his injury with an F3 guy. So little background on that. So QT runs the location that I like to go to
Okay.
um, during the week at Hillgrove High School. Shout out to the Grove. It's a great facility. There's a track and football field. It's all rubber and everything like that. So, and there's a lot of things that we can do there. So Hillgrove is a great spot. So shout out QT. Um, the we actually talked about this morning when I went to go work out there this morning. That we did kind of think that there's something else going on from a health standpoint, that he's a little bit more injured than he would say. And we talked about it, like when you're doing these workouts, like you injure that type of muscle, and there's certain muscles that you need to do certain exercises, a lat being one that you really need to throw. um, I personally have injured a muscle right next to the spine and the shoulder blade that is very, very crucial for doing push-ups. And it's just a nagging thing. Like it's just always going to be there. And I feel like that's kind of the scenario that we're talking about here, where you don't want to put him into a game scenario that he's not needed. And then all of a sudden he injures that muscle
Mm.
on junk time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's my thought, is
Yeah.
that I think that they're bubble wrapping him for that time when, all right, well, Stetson's just not getting it done today. It's an off day, whatever it is. We're in the second or third quarter and we don't have any points on the board. It's kind of a game like the Clemson game. I don't know that they were ready to put Stetson in that game, if I'm being honest. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it kind of goes back to the conversation that we had on the preview episode in the last game. But I just hope that they have a plan. Like, at what point does Stetson need to be underperforming to put JT in any game scenario, whether it be against Missouri, against Alabama? There's got to be some sort of script. It's like, okay, well, if we're not getting XYZ yards per play, or we're not getting XYZ points by XYZ time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's analytics that go all into it. And I'm sure that they're looking at it from that perspective as well, because as much as we struggled, we really didn't, man. We were moving the ball. We were ready to score points, and we just missed a field goal. Or we had a missed blocking assignment. Zamir White missed a block, and the guy came in unguarded, and we got a questionable grounding call. Like we were moving the ball. We were not really having much problem, with their defense, even though on paper it looked like we did.
Yeah, agreed. Okay.
So
I mean, that makes sense to me. I like your thought too about like, well, kind of the counterpoint to what I was saying. Frankly, I was like, well, that was the perfect time to put him in. But to your point, like, well, but if it's garbage times, it doesn't matter. Why risk him re-entering? So that makes sense.
Right.
Okay, and now we get to the uniform Twitter.
The inside sources.
So 51-7 GATA says, uniform Twitter, do the Dogs use the black jersey with Coach Richt back in the stadium? To me, it's an obvious yes. I don't think it's an obvious yes. I mean, it is for me like I want it to happen thing. Yes. But if this was a night game, then I think that would ramp that up even more. But being a noon kickoff, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that is an obvious yes. My old rules for this, like my original template was you wear black jerseys in the final SEC home game every season. So this fits that template. I've now backed off on that. I think we should just wear them at home against Auburn. But now that we play Auburn earlier in the year, it doesn't necessarily work because it could be too hot. So anyways, I don't think it is. I don't think it's obvious. I would love to see it. I'm not sure that we do, especially with it being a noon kickoff.
I don't know that anything is obvious when Kirby Smart is the head coach.
True.
We're hopeful. We're hopeful for black jerseys, guys.
Yeah, we're stuck. We had the over under uniform combinations. We've been stuck on two for We've been stuck on two for so long that friend of the show Tim Riley doesn't even tally it anymore on Twitter. So
I don't think that we're gonna see the black jerseys in this game, guys.
I don't think so. I actually, at this point, I don't think we will see any alternate uniforms this season. I think we're gonna stick with all of the traditional. That's my prediction.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. All right, Zach, SC Dog 864. Favorite Mark Richt moment? Do you have a favorite Mark Richt moment?
Do I have a favorite Mark Richt moment? Like from a game or just in general?
We got to go with the clarifications. I would because I actually was thinking the same thing though. I would say either could be whatever.
I enjoy listening to Mark Richt tell his testimony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The first time I heard him tell his testimony was a very impactful listen. That was probably he was at Woodstock Baptist Church, and I saw him there, and it was really cool. I mean, that's really all I can say. Yeah. It was either there, it might have been. There was a series that Tony Dungy does called All Pro Dads, and I think that he, I think Ben Watson, which obviously another Mark Richt disciple, if you will. I think it was All Pro Dads. I think it might have been that or something that our church did where we also heard it too, because I've heard it multiple times, so I can't really. I've lost track on when the first time was, but hearing his testimony is a very impactful moment in time. If I were to look at it from a game standpoint, obviously the 2007 cocktail party is pretty awesome.
Right. Yeah. It led to our let's have some fun in this place GIF.
Exactly.
And it was so like out of character, even though he claims that like that's not exactly what he meant for the team to do. Um,
Right. I
so
don't know,
since
man.
you,
There's a lot of good Mark Rick moments. I mean, him doing the backflip off the high dive is
Mhm.
also pretty awesome. The
Yeah,
first time I saw him do that, that was pretty cool. I was like, dang, dude, I couldn't do that, and most of the players couldn't either.
yeah, seriously. Um, I'll give. All right, since I think we're going a little shorter than we usually do anyway. I'm gonna jump in with my story that you wanted me to tell last week. Um,
Yes, I feel
because
like we need intro music.
it's
Jim,
actually like
go back and cue up the intro music.
uh, it's actually like a it's actually a Mark Richt and Kirby Smart story all in one. So
Ah.
the so we moved to Charlotte in 2010, and if you don't know, the Bronco Nagurski Award is awarded by the Charlotte Touchdown Club.
Mm.
So in 2011, a buddy of mine at work, he, another guy at work, they scheduled a meeting with me, and we're like, "Hey, Jim, we gotta meet, we gotta go over." Like, it was like, I don't know, they made it sound like something was wrong at work or something. Anyways, it was a way for them to surprise me that we were all going to go to the Bronco Nagurski Award. So my buddy Chris, his neighbor had tickets and couldn't use them all, and he ended up like giving them to us. So the reason why they invited me, and because like everyone, I'm like the annoying guy that loves Georgia, in North Carolina, where like everyone knows that I'm a huge Georgia fan or whatever. Like I don't hide it, and I'm obnoxious about it. So Mark Richt was the keynote speaker um, for the 2011 Bronco Nagurski Award. So they're like they knew that I would be super excited, and I was. So it was like a black tie event.
Ooh.
We went down, in our tuxes, and there's like a cocktail hour. There's mingling. There's things that you could bid on. There's like a silent auction. Side note: I remember Thomas Davis was there as well because Carolina Panther and former Rick player. He actually introduced Rick when Rick gave the keynote speech, and
The freak himself.
yeah. So I got my picture taken with Thomas Davis. He was there. He was bidding. There was a Herschel Walker signed helmet, and Thomas Davis was bidding on it because he wanted it. So that was pretty awesome. Anyways, so we're in like the cocktail hour or whatever, and the guy who had the tickets um, that I didn't know as well, he grabbed me. He's like, "Hey Jim, like look, like Mark Richt is standing over there, and like there's no one around him. Like go up to him, like go talk to him. Like I'll take your picture or whatever." So I do. So I went over. I'm like, hey, Coach Rick, my name's Jim, whatever. Shake his hand, get our picture taken, and then we just start talking, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm talking to Coach Rick. I think like Neil Callaway had just gotten fired by UAB. And I think we've discussed this before. Like my dad knows Neil Callaway from growing up in Macon, and so I said something about like have you heard from Coach Callaway? And I do remember he said something like he's like, oh yeah, like he's okay. It's a tough business. Like those kind of things happen. So we're talking, and then like at one point, like it was super like the conversation like just like abruptly stopped, and he stuck out his hand to shake my hand. He was like, "Well, Jim, it was good to see you," and I was like, "Okay," like that was kind of weird. Like I thought we were having a conversation or whatever. I turned around, and this like enormous line had formed of people trying to talk to Mark Richt, and I was like hogging his time. And so his polite way, very polite way of being like, "Hey, I got a bunch of people waiting to talk to me." So I was like, so embarrassed that I had like held up, all these people's time. Like I don't know how long it was. I don't think it was very long, but like I was like super embarrassed. So so I walk away, like so I shook his hand or whatever, and kind of walked away. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. I'm such an idiot. So
I
uh,
feel like I feel like this is probably like a story that if you were to like ask him about this, he would probably remember this. I feel like we need to reach out to Coach Rick and say, "Hey, do you remember?
So
Do you
okay, so
remember when I
here's
was talking to you and I held up the line?"
so embarrassing, so embarrassing. So okay, so fast forward like I don't know, couldn't have been 15, 20 minutes later, right? I'm walking around and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Kirby Smart. So Kirby was there because there was a Bama guy. This was so 2011. Kirby is a defensive coordinator. This was actually the year that Bama didn't win the West. You know, when LSU won the West and we lost to LSU actually in the SEC championship game, and then it was the Bama LSU BCS title
Is
game.
it the
It was that year.
is that the Honey Badger year?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So it wasn't a Honey Badger, but there was somebody else on that Bama team that was a finalist for the Bronco Nagurski Award, and so Kirby came with him to the award ceremony. So that's why he was there.
Okay.
So I do the same thing. I'm like, hey, Kirby Smart? He's like, yep, I'm Kirby Smart. And so again, like, hey, my name's Jim. You know, I went to Georgia. And I was like, actually, I was a freshman when you were a senior. And he was like, Jim, you're making me feel old. And I was like, well, man, now you just made me feel old. Like, I thought that was like a normal comment. So, you know, so then we're sitting there talking. I really can't remember what we talked about, right? So we're having a conversation. And this is when I said that I've had a beer with Kirby Smart last week. So did he have a beer in his hand? I'm not sure. I certainly did, which I think is part of the reason why I was like blabbermouthed and holding up Rick's line. But you know, like you try to learn from your mistakes, right? So I'm sitting there talking to Kirby Smart. Conversation seems good, but I'm like, I don't want to do to Kirby what I did to Rick. So I'm gonna like just like thank Kirby, you know, shake his hand and say it was nice to meet him, and I'm gonna bail because there's probably somebody waiting to talk to Kirby Smart. So like I'm like, well, hey Kirby, you know, it's nice to meet you. You know, whatever. And I can't remember what else I said. And so like I shook his hand, and then I feel like he kind of felt that I did to him what Rick did to me. Because like I turned around, there was no one waiting to talk to Kirby Smart. I could have just sat there and bent his ear, like I don't know, for however long I wanted, I guess. so
Yeah, back
I
then.
so then I was embarrassed again because I was like, well, crap. Now I think I just made Kirby Smart feel bad. So
That's funny.
I was 0 for 2 on my like, you know, holding a conversation with these guys on that night. So, but I you know, again, so Kirby was a defensive coordinator at that point. He was super nice. Like I said, he just sat there and talked to me. It was pretty cool. So seems to be a good guy. And Mark Richt the same. And Mark Richt, I apologize for making a long line form for people to talk to. My bad.
That's hilarious.
Uh,
That's a really good story, Jim. I've
so,
met so if we were gonna pivot into like our favorite like non-football related, I mean like non like game day related Mark Richt. I had met Mark Richt a few times when I don't know if you remember this, but like there used to be these like fan like fan meeting. Like he would go on like this road show
mhm.
around the state to go to different things. And
Yes.
one year he came through Peachtree City, and then another year he came through I want to say Coweta or Noonan. I remember it because I actually met D'Amico Goodman when D'Amico was at Noonan, and I was following such things back then. I don't know if you remember D'Amico Goodman,
I
but
do.
um,
Number 85. He was one of those like
yeah,
track stars.
he was a track star. Yeah. Anyway, he was at one of the events that I went to over in Noonan, I think, or Coweta. I can't remember where it was. But I met him a few times, and the first time that I met him was 2000 and I want to say it was 2001. It was like the summer of 2001. It was like very, very early in my college career. And it was incidentally, it was the first time that my dad had been to one of those things and said that it was like, it's weird. They have unlimited beer.
Yeah.
So they had this beer truck that everybody was just getting loaded up over at the amphitheater. And I was one of those people that was probably waiting on a guy like Jim, who started this line,
Yes. Well, in my defense,
to go.
it was open bar at the Bronco Nagurski as well. So I think that was it was obviously part of the problem. Uh,
The foolproof got to you.
uh,
But yeah, so I ended up shaking hands and meeting with him, talking with him for a few minutes, asked him what his favorite, Bible verse was, and he signed a football that I've got, that I still have here, which I also had signed by Vince Dooley, not too
nice.
long after that at an event on campus, actually. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, so I got it signed. I have a football signed by both Vince Dooley and Mark Richt, and now I kind of feel like I need to go and get it signed by Kirby Smart at some point,
For
because they
sure.
don't do those things.
I was just going to
They
say
don't do
that.
those events anymore.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. They don't. And they used to go all over. Like they were all over Georgia. I used to go to that. I used to have one like in Roswell. Um, and it came through Charlotte a few years ago, actually. And I actually went with Braniff to that one. But yeah, they stopped doing that.
It was
Those are
Mark
good.
Barron. It was Mark Barron. That's who Kirby Smart was there for.
Oh, in the 11th. Yeah. Yeah. So
He
I've
was
got his
a he was
autograph somewhere because
a he was a free safety. He was a free safety for Bama back then.
okay, so we had we got autographs of like we got like an autograph like card from all the guys that were up for the award. Luke Kuechly actually won that award, which is kind of funny because the Panthers drafted him a couple months later. And I got Rick. I got his autograph that night. I've got a mini football helmet. Actually, you can probably see it. It's right there, signed by Rick. That's where I got that from. So
That's cool.
cool. That was fun.
That's an interesting little tie-in to the 2011 Alabama defense
Yeah.
that this team has been compared to
Yep.
extensively on this podcast and others.
Yep. For sure. For sure. Let's see. Zach also he called out that that the we hit the under on the law firm connections for touchdowns. So he said that we got that correct. So that was good. That was his question last week. All right. So continuing with the Mark Richt theme, Jason Huggins says, "When you stand up to salute Coach Mark Richt, will you well up with tears like I will?" Um, so I won't be there, but if I was to be there, like yes, I love Mark Richt. It wouldn't be the first time I cried over something with him. Like when I remember when I called my dad to talk about. Remember, like there was a press conference when Rick was fired.
Mm-hmm.
When Gary spoke and then Rick spoke. And I remember like, I called my dad, we had watched the whole thing, called my dad to talk about it afterwards. And like I got choked up while I was talking to my dad. Because I remember like the thing that hit me was like in that press conference, like Rick referred, like he was talking about Georgia and he said they. And like when he said they and not we, like it hurt, because like he wasn't there anymore and he was leaving. I remember like when I said that to my dad, like I kind of I choked up a bit. It was hard,
Wow.
man. It was a hard day for me. I love Mark Richt. So if I was there, I hate that I won't be there, but I know knowing now I haven't met Jason in person, but from what I know of Jason, I know he's on board with you know doing the youth soccer. Um, I know Jason's big on family, so not going to miss my daughter's tournament. But other than that, I do wish I could be there, and I certainly would. So
Yeah, I would agree.
yeah. Okay. Will we score? Still from Jason. Will we score a special teams touchdown?
No.
Okay, I'm going to say yes to disagree. Huh. And what I want it to be a Kyrus Jackson punt return. That'd be awesome.
Have we scored one yet this year?
We the block punt against Arkansas. That was
Block
special teams
punt.
touchdown.
Okay.
Yeah, but no punt,
Okay.
no returns of any note.
Right.
Okay, this one's good. You're going to be able to speak more to this than I can. Uh, Jason's last question. Do you stick with beers prior to a nooner or hit the brown prior to and post game? The colder the temperature, the easier to pour a stiff drink at 8 a.m. Just saying.
I mean, the cold weather is perfect timing for a bourbon. So
Yeah.
I would say yes. Where I like will mix it up is if it's like super cold, I'll have an Irish coffee.
Okay.
I'll make my coffee Irish. Just pour some whiskey or some Irish whiskey,
Mhm.
legit Irish whiskey, um, into my coffee in the morning. But
Now,
I don't. I'm not usually cracking beers too early. I don't know why. It's just not what I do.
I had a beer. I had a beer, maybe two beers. I don't know. I had one or two beers at Greg's tailgate for Arkansas. So that was a nooner. So I have done that. And I was saying like because I am new to the bourbons, so I don't have as much experience. I have generally been a beer guy, and generally would just do beers at the tailgate. So, although I rather enjoyed the Weller that John Tweets brought to Clemson, that was excellent. I think I could get used to that. So I'm still
I
learning.
just I just got a couple. I just got a couple of new fresh bottles of the Weller myself. So I'm flush. I'm flush with the Weller right now, which I did
I'm, je-
partake.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I can't find anything. I'm still trying to learn the ropes on how to find these things. Um, okay, let's see. And then the last question, we will cover this, but later. So we don't need to answer this right now. But the DGD podcast did want to know if we're going to cover the 39-point spread. So we'll get that into a moment. In a moment when we get to our final predictions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But first, it's time for Coach Trillbill's over unders. That's what I tried to play last week and had like soundboard fail. uh,
Abort!
but I love that like you chimed in with your own music, which I had kind of forgotten that you did that until like I was editing it, and I was like dying laughing, like listening, editing it. You had done that, so that was a lifesaver. Okay, coaches over unders for this game: Georgia total touchdowns over under set at 6.5. Yeah, over under 6.5 touchdowns for Georgia. And I'll say total touchdowns. So, not necessarily just offensive touchdowns.
Oh
As we
yeah,
just
yeah,
talked,
yeah.
there could be a special team touchdown. Who knows?
I mean, yeah. I think we're going to be right at that. If my math is right, I'm going to go. You said 6.5.
Six
I'm
and
going
a
to go
half
over.
over. Okay. I will go. I'm tipping my cap here, but I'm going to go under. Um, running backs. Ooh, I like this one. I'm not sure about this line though. Running backs over 75 yards rushing for. I'm assuming this means Georgia. Georgia running backs over 75 yards rushing, over under 2.5.
Oh, the number of running backs over
Yeah,
75 yards rushing. Okay.
right.
Um,
It's
given
basically like
that it's
yeah,
yeah,
good.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go two.
So you'll go under.
Yeah,
Yeah. So basically Zeus and
Zeus and Cook.
Cook. Yeah, yeah. Because the question there, because Milton's out, so then you got to rely on either McIntosh or Edwards. I'll stay. I'll go with you. I'll say under. Shocking. Let's see. Forced turnovers 2.5. So over under 2.5.
Hmm.
Something I did notice is that Missouri actually, I know they are plus in the like turnover margin on the year, meaning they've had more takeaways than giveaways. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they're +4 on the season. They actually have a better turnover margin than we do by one turnover. Um, so I will say under 2.5.
Under 2.5. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say,
So what do we had? We had three against Florida, right? So
yeah, I'm gonna go under as well.
okay. Uh, over under 1.5 defensive touchdowns for Georgia.
I'm gonna go under.
I also will go under. I do. I think we'll get one though.
Yeah,
Um,
one feels about right.
over under 3.5 sacks.
I'm gonna go over.
All right, I'm gonna go over two. I'm done picking what I don't want to pick to not agree with you. Okay. So like over under. Well, basically, does okay? JT enters the game. Uh, he said third quarter. Like, so does he enter the game before or after the third quarter? Or you
I
could say
mean,
push, meaning not at all. Not at all.
yeah, I was gonna say push. Push is clearly where I'm at.
Okay. I'm gonna take the over. I don't know what that means, but I take the over.
I don't know what that means.
Okay. Twitter complaints about the time. Twitter complaints about the kickoff time. Over under 4,000.
Over for sure, because it's definitely been on my topic.
Yes, yes, yes. We considering we've already talked about that on the podcast. Over. We're adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, way
Okay,
over.
I like this one. Over under Coach Mark Richt standing ovation length. Over under set at 30 seconds.
Oh, definitely over.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay, that is it for Coach Trail Bills over unders. Um,
As always, thank you.
yes, yes, definitely. Okay, so for the game, our friends at OddsShark, who are not a sponsor, but hey, like if you guys want to sponsor us, we're good at that. But we do like the site. Over under for the game is 59 total points, and Georgia is favored by 38. So that is a massive point spread. Um, if you were to kind of like apply that spread and the over under, the score would be something like 48 to 10 ish,
Uh,
48 to 10,
uh,
49 to
I was
11.
gonna say 45-7.
That's your prediction?
Mm-hmm.
God, I'm like right there with you. So let's see. That's a push on the cover.
How's that? That's a push on the cover. How?
Yeah, because the spread's 38 and 45 minus 7 is 38.
Oh, I see. All right, 46-7.
Hey, you can make your score prediction and change that's fine. Okay, so you got 46 to 7. Man, but now we've got to do like the funky math on like what's going to happen to get that extra point. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like to me, the question is like, are you going to cover or not? Right? I mean, that's the question. It has a lot of points to cover. Yeah, man. I mean, I've got I had 41 to 7, so I'm right there with you. So I think we win big. It's not a cover, but I don't see it with these guys.
It's a lot of points for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And let's see, that'd also be the under. Um, let's see, yours would be the under too, because over under is 59. Um, so you sticking with the under, or are you gonna go opposite? Are you gonna hedge your bets?
I'm gonna stick with the under.
Okay, okay,
It's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. I mean,
yeah.
with as much running as I think we're gonna have to do, or that I feel like we're going to be able to do based on their rushing performances. I mean, it's gonna eat up a lot of clock.
Right. Agreed. Agreed. All right. Well, this was fun. We got in a couple extra stories.
We
We
did. We
did.
got a couple historical things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I again, I wish I could go, but I'll be listening. I hope they show a bit of the Richt stuff on TV. At least just like a shot of him being there. Kind of like in a cutaway kind of segment, maybe during the second half somewhere. Show that he was there. I'll be watching for that.
If nothing else, I feel like that they're going to, you know, they'll definitely have some marketing materials about it. Like they'll probably post on the socials about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wonder if Mark Richt will like stop by the booth at all, because I mean he does SEC network stuff, or I mean
Hmm.
ACC network stuff, which is ESPN. It's an ESPN game. I wonder if they'll have a segment where he stops by the booth since he's there. Over under point 0.5, point 0.5 appearances by Mark Richt in the booth. I don't know. That'll be something to watch for. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be pretty cool. I mean, I would imagine the sideline. He'll probably be on the sideline for
Mm.
the halftime announcement. So I imagine. You said it's on ESPN. Who was the sideline reporter for ESPN that we normally have?
Hold on. I will tell you who the crew is.
It's not Holly, is it?
No, no, it is. So this one is the silent reporter is Katie George. So this game we've got Joe Tessitore and Greg McElroy.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would assume, and since like I said, I'll be probably listening to the radio for a good bit of this. I would imagine we'll get a DJ Shockley interview with Rick at some point during the
For
Georgia
sure.
Georgia broadcast. So that would be cool. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, man. Well, this was fun. And I don't know, man. Should be. Let's get to enjoy watching this defense play again on Saturday.
Let's watch the artists. Let's watch the artists paint, Jim.
I like it. I like it.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.